General Vorian stood tall on the bridge of the massive warship, his claws making soft clicking sounds against the smooth metal of his command console. Through the enormous viewing window, he could see the small blue and green planets spinning slowly below. Such a simple name for what would become just another conquered world in the Krillian Empire's long history. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The air hummed with the soft buzz of technology and the occasional beep from various monitoring systems. Vorian felt a familiar sense of satisfaction wash over him. This moment never got old, even after 300 years of expansion across the galaxy. Status report, Vorian commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Thex, turned from his console. All 200 warships are in position, General. The planet is completely surrounded. Their primitive sensors have detected us, and their governments are in chaos. Vorian's mandibles clicked together, the Krillian equivalent of a smile. 200 warships. It was almost unfair. His fleet had conquered entire star systems with half that number. But the High Command wanted this done quickly and decisively. Earth was strategically located, and its resources would be valuable to the Empire. Show me their military capabilities, Vorian ordered. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge. Images of human spacecraft appeared, rotating slowly for inspection. Vorian studied them with growing amusement. They were crude things barely capable of reaching their own moon. Chemical rockets. Primitive nuclear weapons. Some early energy shields that wouldn't stop a child's toy weapon. This is their best? Vorian asked, genuine surprise in his voice. His tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Drex, approached the display. Yes, General. Our intelligence confirms they've only recently achieved basic spaceflight. Most of their vessels are science stations or cargo transports. They have perhaps 50 ships capable of any combat function, and those are equipped with weapons that would barely scratch our shields. Drex gestured at the hologram, and it shifted to show Earth's surface. Hundreds of lights marked different nations and territories. They're also divided into over 100 separate governments. No unified command structure. No planetary defense grid. They've been fighting among themselves for their entire history. Another officer chimed in from across the bridge. Their largest space station holds maybe 300 people. It's a research facility, General. They use it to study their own planet and conduct basic experiments. Vorian watched the holographic Earth spin slowly, its cities twinkling like stars against the dark continents. So fragile. So unprotected. He had seen this pattern dozens of times before. Young civilizations barely reaching for the stars, completely unprepared for what waited for them in the vast darkness of space. They won't last an hour, Drex said confidently. Once they see our fleet's true power, they'll surrender immediately. They always do. Vorian nodded slowly. Yes, they always did. Fear was a universal language and his fleet spoke it fluently. He had personally overseen the conquest of 17 star systems. Some species had been more advanced than these humans with better weapons and stronger ships. But none had withstood the Krillian Empire once they understood the alternative to surrender. Open a channel to their leadership, Vorian commanded. Let's give them a chance to be reasonable. A communications officer worked quickly at her station, her claws dancing across the controls. Channel open, General. Broadcasting to all major population centers on the planet. Vorian straightened, allowing himself a moment to enjoy this part of the conquest. The moment when a species first heard his voice and understood their world had changed forever. Humans of Earth, he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. This is General Vorian of the Krillian Empire. Your planet is now surrounded by 200 warships. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses cannot stop us. Surrender immediately and accept our terms, or we will demonstrate our power and take what we want by force. You have one of your hours to respond. The bridge fell silent as they waited. Vorian could hear his own hearts beating steadily in his chest. This was always the moment of truth. Would they be smart and surrender? Or would they need to see death first? The response came faster than expected. The communications officer looked up in surprise. General, we have a response. Audio only. Put it through, Vorian ordered. Static crackled through the bridge speakers, then cleared. A human male's voice came through, speaking the common galactic language with a slight accent. The voice was calm, measured, and carried no trace of fear. This is Admiral Mike Torres of Earth Defense Command. We've received your message, General Vorian. Vorian leaned forward slightly, waiting for the inevitable plea for mercy or the desperate attempt to negotiate terms. What came next made his mandibles freeze mid-click. Our answer is no. The bridge erupted in confused murmurs. Officers exchanged glances. Vorian's tactical display showed no change in Earth's defensive posture. No fleets launching. No weapons charging. Just that calm, steady refusal. Vorian's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. Foolish creatures. Did they not understand what they faced? Perhaps they needed a lesson in reality. Demonstrate our power, Vorian ordered coldly. Destroy their largest orbital station. Show them what happens to those who refuse the Empire. 20 warships immediately broke from the main formation, their engines flaring bright as they accelerated toward the spinning research station above Earth. Their weapons systems hummed to life, charging for the killing blow. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, General Vorian watched his tactical display with grim satisfaction. The humans would learn their mistake now. They always did. What happened next would shatter 300 years of Krillian military doctrine in less than 6 minutes. Admiral Mike Torres stood in the underground command center, 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. The room was dim, lit only by the blue glow of dozens of monitors and tactical displays. Around him, 200 men and women worked in focused silence, their fingers moving quickly across keyboards and touch screens. Mike was 52 years old, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes that came from years of planning for this exact moment. He'd spent the last 15 years of his life preparing for first contact. Most people had hoped aliens would come in peace. Mike had prepared for the alternative. Beside him, Commander Rachel Davis monitored the main tactical display. She was younger, barely 35, but she'd been with the defense program since the beginning. Her voice was steady as she reported what everyone in the room already knew was coming. Krillian ships approaching Station Liberty, sir. 20 vessels breaking from main formation. Distance closing. 2 minutes to weapons range. Mike nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the large display showing Earth's orbit. Station Liberty looked exactly like what the Krillians expected to see. A spinning wheel of a research station, lights glowing from its windows, solar panels extended like wings. 300 scientists and support staff lived there, studying everything from zero-gravity medicine to asteroid composition. What the Krillians didn't know was that those 300 people had evacuated to emergency shelters 3 hours ago, the moment long-range sensors detected the alien fleet. And Station Liberty wasn't what it appeared to be. Weapons status? Mike asked quietly. A young officer named Tommy Grant spoke up from the weapons console. All railgun batteries charged and ready, sir. Targeting computers locked on. Waiting for your command. Mike glanced at the countdown timer. 90 seconds. The Krillian ships were moving confidently, their shields bright and strong. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that humanity had spent a century preparing. Sir, should we hail them again? Rachel asked. Give them one more chance to turn back? Mike shook his head. They made their choice when they threatened to destroy a station full of civilians. Or at least what they think is full of civilians. Around the command center, other displays showed feeds from hidden cameras and sensors scattered throughout the solar system. Behind the moon, 12 weapons platforms waited in silence. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, another 30 platforms hung dormant, looking like ordinary chunks of rock. And in Earth's orbit, disguised as space debris and old satellites, 60 more weapons systems waited for activation. The Krillians thought they were attacking a primitive species with chemical rockets and early nuclear technology. They had no idea humans had been lying about their capabilities for decades, ever since they detected the first signs of the Krillian Empire expanding through nearby star systems. 60 seconds, Rachel reported. Mike thought about all the people watching this moment from command centers around the world. In Geneva, Beijing, Washington, Moscow, Mumbai, and 100 other cities, leaders held their breath. Billions of humans on the surface had no idea their world hung in the balance. They'd been told to stay calm, that diplomatic efforts were ongoing. Better they didn't know how close they were to annihilation. 30 seconds. Krillian ships entering firing range. Mike watched the alien warships slow their approach. They were lining up for a coordinated strike, planning to obliterate Station Liberty in one overwhelming salvo. He could almost imagine the alien commander on his bridge, confident and certain of victory. Wait for it, Mike said quietly. The seconds ticked by. 20. 15. 10. The Krillian shields glowed brighter as they charged their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the tactical display. Now, Mike ordered, his voice calm despite his racing heart. High above Earth, Station Liberty's outer hull split open in 12 places. Hidden panels that had been camouflaged to look like ordinary station plating snapped back, revealing the weapon's batteries concealed underneath. 12 massive railguns, each longer than a football field, had been waiting for this moment. The weapons fired simultaneously with a flash of electromagnetic energy. Tungsten rods, each weighing 2 tons, accelerated down the length of the barrels. Within milliseconds they reached 30% of light speed. At that velocity they became more than projectiles. They became unstoppable forces of kinetic destruction. The Krillian shields had been designed to stop energy weapons. Lasers, plasma bolts, particle beams. They were excellent at deflecting and absorbing those attacks. But kinetic weapons traveling at relativistic speeds were different. The rods simply passed through the shields like they weren't even there. 12 alien warships exploded in brilliant white flashes as the tungsten rods punched through their hulls and detonated their power cores. The explosions lit up the darkness of space like miniature suns. In the command center, a cheer started to erupt, but Mike held up his hand for silence. That was the easy part. Now it gets hard. Activate all platforms. Execute ambush protocol. All around Earth's orbital space, weapon systems came online. Rachel's fingers flew across her console, coordinating with weapons officers around the planet. Lunar platforms active. Asteroid belt platforms active. Orbital debris platforms active. We have targeting locks on 86 additional Krillian vessels. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, thousands of miles away, General Vorian lurched forward as alarms screamed throughout his ship. His confident expression had vanished, replaced by shock and confusion. Mike watched his tactical display as 8 more Krillian ships vanished in explosions. Then 12 more. The aliens were scrambling, trying to understand what had just happened. Their formations broke apart as ships began evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. The humans weren't defending anymore. They were executing a carefully planned ambush that had taken decades to prepare. Every weapons platform had been positioned with this exact scenario in mind. Every firing solution had been calculated and recalculated thousands of times. 20 more targets eliminated, Rachel reported. The Krillians are attempting to reform their lines, but they're in complete disarray. Mike nodded, watching the enemy fleet struggle to respond. Activate Ghost Squadron. Let's show them what else we've been hiding. The real battle was just beginning. Captain Jake Morrison sat perfectly still in the neural interface chair, though his body's position didn't really matter anymore. The moment he'd plugged into the system, his sense of self had expanded beyond flesh and bone. He could feel every meter of the stealth destroyer Phantom's hull like it was his own skin. The ship's engines pulsed like a second heartbeat in his chest. The weapon systems hummed with potential energy that felt like his own muscles coiled and ready to strike. Jake had been flying neural interface ships for 8 years now, ever since the program started. Even so, the sensation never got old. It was like being a god and a machine at the same time. His human brain, with all its creativity and instinct, merged with the ship's computational power and precision. Together they became something greater than either could be alone. All Ghost Squadron pilots, status check, came the voice of Commander Patricia Reeves through his neural link. She was flying the Wraith, positioned 2,000 kilometers to his left, though left and right didn't mean much in space. Phantom ready, Jake responded, not with his voice but with his thoughts. The neural link transmitted his confirmation instantly. Around him in the darkness of space, 39 other voices checked in. Ghost Squadron. 40 of humanity's most advanced warships, invisible to every sensor the Krillians possessed. They'd been floating here for 6 hours, waiting in perfect silence while the enemy fleet positioned itself around Earth. The ships looked nothing like the crude vessels the Krillians had seen in their intelligence reports. Each one was a sleek predator, 300 meters long, with hulls made of specialized materials that absorbed radar, light, and heat. No windows. No external lights. Just smooth black surfaces that drank in starlight and gave nothing back. Ghost Squadron, drop camouflage. Admiral Torres's command came through clearly. Jake thought the command and the Phantom obeyed. The active stealth systems disengaged. Suddenly, 40 warships materialized from apparently empty space, appearing on every Krillian sensor at once. Through his connection to the ship, Jake could see the enemy fleet in perfect detail. The Krillians were already in chaos from the ambush at Station Liberty. Their formations had broken apart. Ships were scattered across orbital space trying to regroup and understand what had hit them. Jake's targeting systems, which felt like his own eyes focusing, locked onto 3 enemy cruisers that were attempting to form a defensive position. He didn't reach for controls or pull triggers. He simply thought about firing and the Phantom responded instantly. Missile pods along the ship's flanks opened and launched. 20 small missiles streaked toward their targets, each one guided by targeting computers that could adjust trajectory 1,000 times per second. At the same time, laser batteries mounted in hidden turrets tracked and fired. Beams of concentrated light, invisible in the vacuum of space, burned across the distance. The Krillian cruisers never had a chance to react. The missiles struck first, overwhelming their shields with multiple impacts. Then the lasers cut through the weakened defenses and sliced into hull plating. 2 of the cruisers exploded immediately. The third one began venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. 3 targets eliminated, Jake reported, his thoughts calm despite the violence he'd just unleashed. All around him, the other 39 pilots were doing the same thing. Ghost Squadron moved through the Krillian fleet like wolves tearing through a flock of sheep. The neural interface allowed them to fly in perfect coordination, each pilot aware of where the others were and what they were targeting. Jake pulled the Phantom into a hard turn that would have crushed his body into paste if he'd been flying manually. But the neural interface controlled the ship's internal gravity systems, keeping him safe while the vessel performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. 8 Gs. 12 Gs. Forces that would kill a normal pilot barely registered as he spun and dove through the battlefield. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, General Vorian gripped his command console so hard his claws scraped against the metal. His tactical display had become a nightmare of red warning indicators. Ships were dying so fast his sensors couldn't keep up. "What are those ships?" he demanded, his voice cracking with something he hadn't felt in 300 years of conquest. Fear. His science officer, Krax, worked frantically at his station. His hands shook as he pulled up scan data. "General, I'm detecting no life signs aboard those vessels." "None at all." "That's impossible," Vorian snapped. "Ships don't fly themselves." "These ones do, sir." Krax's voice broke as he read the data. "They're pulling maneuvers of 15-20 G forces. Those accelerations would liquefy any biological crew. The ships are piloting themselves. Artificial intelligence. The humans have created thinking machines." Vorian felt his blood turn cold. Artificial intelligence was forbidden by galactic law. Every species that had tried to create it had been destroyed when their creations turned on them. It was the one universal rule that every civilization agreed upon. But the humans hadn't just created artificial intelligence. They'd somehow controlled it, tamed it, and merged it with their own pilots to create something terrifying. Jake Morrison felt the Phantom's weapon systems cycling through another target selection. A Krillian dreadnought, massive and powerful, was trying to organize a counterattack. Jake didn't even consciously make the decision. His tactical instincts and the ship's computational power merged into a single thought, and the Phantom dove toward its new target. Around him, Ghost Squadron moved like a single organism with 40 deadly limbs. They didn't need to communicate verbally anymore. Through the neural network linking all their ships, they thought and moved as one unified force. In 6 minutes, 87 more Krillian warships became expanding clouds of debris and frozen atmosphere. The humans weren't defending their home. They were hunting, and they were very, very good at it. On his bridge, General Vorian had stopped giving orders. He simply stood frozen, staring at his tactical display as 3 centuries of military doctrine burned away like paper in a fire. General Vorian's voice shattered across every communication channel in his fleet. "Full retreat. All ships scatter and withdraw immediately." The words tasted like poison in his mouth. In 300 years of military service, through 17 conquered star systems and countless battles, he had never given that order. Never. The Krillian Empire didn't retreat. They didn't run. They conquered or they died trying. But today the rules had changed. Around Earth's orbital space, the surviving Krillian ships broke apart like a school of fish fleeing from sharks. Captains abandoned all formation protocols and simply pointed their vessels toward the nearest jump points. Pride meant nothing when death moved so quickly through the darkness. Vorian watched his tactical display as ship after ship winked out, jumping to faster-than-light speeds the moment they reached safe distance. Out of 200 warships that had surrounded Earth with such confidence, barely 50 remained functional. And those 50 were running for their lives. "Helm, get us out of here," Vorian ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Maximum speed to the nearest jump point." The Eternal Dominion turned, its massive engines burning at full power. The flagship was damaged but still space-worthy. Vorian felt a small spark of relief. He would survive this disaster. He would make it home. That relief lasted exactly 12 seconds. "General, we have 3 human vessels pursuing us," his sensor officer reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're matching our speed and trajectory." Vorian's eyes snapped to his tactical screen. 3 sleek black ships, smaller than his flagship but impossibly fast, had detached from the main human fleet. They weren't chasing any of the other retreating Krillian vessels. Only his. "Evasive maneuvers," Vorian commanded. "Lose them." The Eternal Dominion twisted and turned, trying every trick Vorian had learned in 3 centuries of warfare. But the human ships matched every move, staying exactly 3,000 kilometers behind. They weren't trying to close the distance. They were hurting him, pushing his flagship away from his planned escape vector. "They're cutting us off from the jump point," his navigator said desperately. "Redirecting to secondary coordinates." But wherever the Eternal Dominion turned, the human ships were there, gently but firmly guiding him in a specific direction. Away from Krillian space. Away from reinforcements. Away from any hope of immediate escape. Aboard the human destroyer Reaper, Commander Anna Hayes sat perfectly still in her neural interface chair. Through her connection to the ship, she could feel the other 2 vessels flanking her. The Valkyrie on her left, piloted by Lieutenant Doug Patterson. The Harbinger on her right, piloted by Captain Nicole Park. 3 ships, 3 minds moving with one purpose. Anna had volunteered for this specific mission. Not to kill but to send a message. Admiral Torres had been very clear. 1 Krillian ship needed to survive. 1 commander needed to go home with a story that would change how the galaxy saw humanity. Valkyrie, Harbinger, maintain pursuit formation, Anna commanded through the neural link. "Don't let him reach any jump points yet. We need him far enough from the battle that he'll really listen." "Copy that," Doug responded. "I've got his starboard side covered." "Port side secured," Nicole added. "He's trying to fake toward the moon but I'm on it." Anna felt a strange mix of emotions through her link with the Reaper. The ship's tactical computers wanted to fire to eliminate the target. But her human consciousness overrode those instincts. This wasn't about destruction anymore. This was about ensuring nothing like this ever happened again. After 15 minutes of pursuit, they'd pushed the Eternal Dominion far enough from Earth. Anna opened a communication channel, setting it to the Krillian military frequency. "General Vorian," she said, speaking in flawless Krillian. The language had been loaded into her neural interface, but she'd spent months practicing it, making sure her accent and tone were perfect. "We need you to deliver a message to your empire." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, every officer froze. The human voice speaking their language so perfectly sent chills through the crew. Vorian's mandibles trembled as he stared at the communication console. "You attacked our home," Anna continued, keeping her voice conversational, almost friendly. "You threatened our children. Our families. Everyone we love. You came here thinking we were weak because we're young. Because we still fight among ourselves sometimes. Because our ships looked primitive." Anna paused, letting the words sink in. Through the Reaper's sensors, she could see the Krillian flagship had stopped trying to run. They were listening. "We've spent the last century preparing for species like yours, General. When we first detected signals from other civilizations, we had a choice to make. We could announce ourselves, reach out in friendship, and hope everyone in the galaxy was peaceful. Or we could stay quiet, watch, learn, and prepare for the possibility that someone might not come in peace." The 3 human ships maintained their positions around the Eternal Dominion, close enough to fire but making no threatening moves. "We chose to prepare," Anna said. "We watched your empire expand. We studied your technology. We learned your language, your culture, your military tactics. And we built weapons you never imagined. We didn't want to be aggressors, General. We wanted to explore the stars, make friends, learn from other civilizations. But we understood that wanting peace meant being ready for war." Anna glanced at her tactical display. The Eternal Dominion's weapons were offline. Its shields were flickering. It was no threat. "You're going to go home now," Anna said softly. "We're letting you go because we need you to deliver this message. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a target. Tell them that humanity will defend itself with everything we have. And tell them that if they come in peace, we'll welcome them with open arms. But if they come with threats..." The 3 human ships powered up their weapons briefly, just enough for the Krillian sensors to register. Then powered them back down. "Go home, General," Anna said. "Tell them what happens when predators mistake prey for weakness." The 3 human ships peeled away, accelerating back toward Earth. The Eternal Dominion was left floating alone in the darkness, damaged but functional. Free to run. Free to carry the message. 3 weeks after the battle, a general walked into a room where his life would end. Not his physical life but everything that mattered to him. His rank, his honor, his future, all of it gone in the next hour. General Vorian moved slowly through the corridors of the Krillian High Command, feeling the weight of what he was about to tell them. The council chamber was cold, decorated with symbols of power and ancient victories. Today those symbols would feel meaningless. You lost 184 ships to a primitive species? The council leader's voice didn't show anger yet. That would come later once the shock wore off. But Vorian could hear the disbelief underneath the words. To the Krillian Empire, losing 184 ships to humans was like a master swordsman losing to a child with a stick. It simply didn't compute. It violated every law of their understanding. Vorian stepped forward and transmitted the sensor logs directly to the council's main display. Every moment of the battle appeared before them. They watched humanity's weapons move through space, cutting down Krillian ships faster than their shields could adjust. They saw the artificial intelligence controlling human vessels make decisions that seemed impossible, moving in patterns that broke physics itself. And then they heard it. That human voice, broadcasting across all channels, calm and certain and terrifyingly confident. The council didn't move. They didn't speak. They barely seemed to breathe. "This is impossible," one council member whispered. It wasn't really a statement. It was more like prayer, like saying it out loud might change what they were seeing. But the data didn't lie. The videos didn't lie. The absence of 184 ships didn't lie. "Other survivors confirm everything in these logs," Vorian said. His voice was steady, but inside he felt like a man describing his own execution. "We have statements from 17 different ships. The accounts match perfectly. And our intelligence division found something else. Something important." He paused. The council leaned forward slightly. "The humans didn't use their most advanced weapons. Think about that. They had antimatter available. We detected it in their storage facilities. They have quantum disruptors in their research stations. We've monitored their development for years. But they didn't use any of it. They deliberately chose old technology. Kinetic weapons. Early generation artificial intelligence. Basic physics-based combat systems. Everything they used against us was essentially antiquated." A council member stood up suddenly. "Why would they do that?" "To send us a message," Vorian replied. "They wanted us to understand something very specific. This wasn't them showing their best. This wasn't them going all out against a threat they feared. This was them telling us exactly what they'll do with weapons from their own past. Technology they've already moved beyond. Technology they consider outdated." The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't confused silence. This was the silence of people understanding something that terrifies them. It was the quiet moment right before something fundamental shifts forever. The council leader stood slowly. When he spoke, every word came with the weight of absolute authority. "Reclassify humanity as Class X threat. Effective immediately. No Krillian ship approaches their system again. No exceptions. No scientific expeditions. No trade delegations. No contact whatsoever. They are sealed off. They are forbidden." "And the other species gathering invasion forces?" another council member asked. "They will see what we saw," the council leader said. "They will understand." Within days everything changed. The footage didn't stay contained. It spread across the galaxy like a disease, impossible to stop. Every species that had been preparing invasion fleets gathered their commanders and showed them the same recordings. They watched human weapons destroy an advanced military force with casual efficiency. They heard that calm human voice explaining themselves. They understood the message perfectly. Species that had planned to attack Earth canceled their operations. Military buildups stopped. Invasion plans were shelved. Some alien governments destroyed the records. Some tried to pretend they'd never planned anything at all. But they all reached the same conclusion: humanity was something different. Earth had introduced itself to the galactic community, but not the way anyone expected. Humans didn't arrive with diplomatic speeches or peaceful intentions. They arrived with a simple, unmistakable statement delivered through overwhelming force. They showed up as something the galaxy had forgotten to fear. Humanity's message to the universe was beautifully clear: come in peace and we will welcome you. Come with hostile intent and we will destroy you. Earth had become the predator. And now, everyone finally understood. The end. Retry. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.